Shalom and good morning to you. You're welcome to another episode of Word of Grace. Remember, in our previous and recent episodes, we're talking about perfect peace. We're talking about the shalom of God. And our theme scripture is Isaiah 26 verse 3. Let's read it, shall we? Isaiah 26 verse 3. You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in you. And I mentioned that the word that the King James Version of the Bible translates as perfect peace is actually the Hebrew word shalom. So then, you can literally read it this way. You will keep him in shalom, shalom, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. And like I said, shalom is not just about peace. It includes good health. Shalom means a state of balance. It means a state of balance, which includes good health, safety, provision, and peace as we know it. And the scriptures tell us that God is able to keep us in his perfect peace. So, we want to remain in peace. We want to remain in the perfect peace of God. How do we attain that? You may ask Prophet Solomon, how do I literally stay in the peace of God? It is very simple. The first fact we establish is that peace emanates from God. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. And God has given us the assurance that he is able to keep us in his perfect peace. And he says for us to be able to remain in God's perfect peace, there is one thing we must do. He says our minds must be stayed on God. Our minds must be stayed on God. Our minds must be stayed on God. Remember what David said, that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. You know, David, as a shepherd boy, he was anointed as king, while Saul was yet king. So he knew that there would come a time that he would possess the throne. But then we realized that Saul started persecuting David. So many times he attempted to take his life. David, as a shepherd boy, also faced various forms of danger. There were times that wild animals would threaten to harm David's sheep. David, being aware of all of these dangers, knew one thing. He was conscious of one very, very important fact. What was he conscious of? He was conscious of the fact that God was with him. It means that David's mind was stayed on God. Yes, David was going about his daily activities. He was going about his daily way of life. But yet still, in the midst of every situation, in the midst of every circumstance that David encountered, David did not forget the fact that God was with him. That is why he said in the 23rd Psalm, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear. Why did he not fear? Because he was conscious of the presence of God. You see, it doesn't matter what you do to try and then dispel fear away from you. Fear is not going to run away. It doesn't matter what you do to try and put your mind at ease. Your mind is still going to be troubled. It doesn't matter the various forms of, meditation, and some people tend to Eastern forms of meditation, some of which are demonic. It doesn't matter what you do. The fact remains, some people would want to run away from their problems. They resort to drugs and then alcohol. But then, reality will quickly catch up with you again. It doesn't matter what you do, fear will come back running to you. Anxiety, trouble will come back running to you when you try of your own accord to remain in peace. But peace comes from God. And God says he's able to give us peace. And I have established that, the peace God offers is not just the absence of trouble. You can be surrounded by trouble and still remain in peace. Why? Your mind must be stayed on God. And how do you keep your mind? How do you keep your mind stayed on God? You must be conscious of his presence. God says that Jesus Christ, before he ascended, he told his disciples, "Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the ages." When Paul was put in prison together with Silas, their hands and their feet were chained. But guess what? Paul was not afraid. He wasn't troubled. He wasn't fearful, because he knew that even in prison, God was with him. That is how you keep your mind stayed on God. And he was conscious of the fact that because God was with him, remember what the scriptures tell us, Romans 8 verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. That is how you keep your mind stayed on God, knowing that trouble is on your right Anxiety is on your left. Fear is creeping and circling you all about. But then you know that God is with you. And God has promised that all things will work together for your good. And because of that, you are not afraid. When you are conscious of the fact that God says all things will work out for your good, even when trouble comes, you will not be afraid and you will be conscious of His presence. That is the way to peace. Have a blessed day. We continue on the next episode.